Hey everybody, welcome into To The Point Podcast. You guys doing well on this Tuesday? Big show today. Shamus is joining as always. We're going to start our preview podcast for the NHL season. The NHL season starts 2 weeks tonight, if you can believe it. Today, we're going to be talking about the Atlantic Division. So we'll be doing all the Canadian Eastern teams. I'll be doing the Metropolitan Division solo on Thursday. Then next Tuesday, Shamus, when he joins, we will be doing the Pacific Divisions. That's the Canadian teams out west alongside the California teams. And you know the division set up for the National Hockey League. And before the season starts, I'll also be doing the Central Division out west. So the four divisions will be covered. We'll talk about off seasons. We'll talk about X factors for this season for success for these teams. What do they have to do to find it? And it could be certain players, could be just imports, how they play, things of that nature. We're going to get into all of that today in depth. We're also going to talk about the Boston Celtics. Shamus is a big Boston Celtic fan. I did not really address the Ime Udoka situation last week. We're going to do that today. There's more facts that have come out. We know more about it. I can have an opinion on it without being too drastic. So that is another thing we're going to talk about today. And of course, we'll get into some football injuries, some news on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers front when it comes to their game on Sunday Night Football. And we'll start the show talking about Monday Night Football, which last night featured two NFC East teams on a Monday night. Prior to last night, the New York Giants had not had a Monday Night Football home game since 2018. This means something because the New York Giants, although they've been horrible for a number of years, still are the New York Giants. They still are a brand. They still represent something. The New York Knicks still play on Christmas most years, even though they are a complete doormat, even though they're an afterthought. You still see them on the marquee. Well, the New York Giants have been on the marquee in certain times, but only because of the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have played the Giants twice a year. They normally at least play on a Sunday night. This year it's a Monday night, week 3 on ESPN. And last night's game was mainly forgettable. It wasn't, a lot of these primetime games this year have been bad. Steelers versus the Cleveland Browns last Thursday. Not a great football game. 49ers, Broncos. I love a defensive battle. I can sell that. That game Sunday night was as awful as it gets. It was just bad football, bad execution. It was just horrible across the board. It's hard to sell that. Then you get last night's game, Cowboys, Giants, between an average quarterback in Cooper Rush and an average quarterback in Daniel Jones. Or one could argue you have an average quarterback in Cooper Rush and you have a below average quarterback in Daniel Jones, because it is extremely hard to say, well, last night Daniel Jones played horrible, because I don't think you can give him a grade today that it says, oh, he's just played horrible last night, when Daniel Jones was pressured more than any other quarterback this season. He was pressured more in last night's game than any quarterback in the history of the league. This doesn't mean he was sacked the most, although he was sacked 6 times. He was pressured the most on his dropbacks in the history of the league. That's what Danny Dimes was up against last night. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, who had a phenomenal game, and my guy, the breakout star in that defensive, in the pass rush for the Dallas Cowboys, Dorrance Armstrong, who's just a flat-out stud. He flies around the field. He's a difference maker. So it's hard to have an opinion last night, well, Daniel Jones is not a franchise quarterback. You knew Daniel Jones wasn't a franchise quarterback before, but yet the Giants were a 2-0 team who defeated Carolina, who upset Tennessee, and yet you looked at the team and didn't believe in them. For a good reason, because the New York Giants aren't a good team. They're not a great team. They're just a team. They will be a team that gets 5 to 6 wins this season. They have 2 already. They'll be in the mix to make the playoffs. And let's just be frank here. The New York Giants getting 5 to 6 wins this year is a victory for the New York Giants. It's a victory for Brian Daboll. Because what do you do after you get a 5 to 6 win season? You build off of it. You build off that success Giants-esque. Dayball will miss the playoffs year one as head coach. He will let Daniel Jones walk in free agency, and you decide you draft another quarterback. It might be C.J. Stroud. It might be Will Levis. It might be Bryce Young. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in college football right now. And the New York Giants will be able to scoop one up, or maybe there's another veteran that becomes available. But watching the veterans play the first couple weeks, I don't know if you want them, but there's going to be a ton of guys in this draft. But looking past the Giants, and there's elements of the Giants I like, although they don't have any great receivers. Kenny Golladay should be cut today. He won't because of his contract, but he should be. He's just such a non-factor. The drops last night after his bitching after getting 2 offensive snaps in week 2, completely underwhelming. Saquon Barkley, he's running behind a bad offensive line again. It's extremely hard for him to be productive, although I like him. The New York Giants defense is solid. They got some good players. But what I love about the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm not a Cowboys guy. I usually hate the teams that get all the pomp, get all the circumstance, that get notoriety for no reason other than being a brand. I don't root for influencers. I don't have TikTok. I don't go on social media and say, how many reels can I watch today of this person that has a cat? I could give a shit about that element of society. It's not for me. I go home, throw on an episode of The Office, eat a salad, and call it a day. Well, not really call it a day because I've gotten like 6 hours of sleep in the last 4 days. But wait till Shamus gets on because he's going to be my doctor today when we really talk about my sleep issue. But that is what we're dealing with here, is the Dallas Cowboys are not an elite team. I didn't have them making the playoffs, and I think I'm going to be wrong for a couple of reasons. The NFC is weak. I didn't have the Saints making the playoffs. The Saints stink. The Vikings are 2-1. They're not a confident 2-1. Detroit's 1-2. I don't know. I like Detroit, but again, do I have any faith that they'll make a playoff run? No, they've never done it. They might be able to beat up anybody with one ass cheek and 10 toes, but I don't care. Dan Campbell, hoorah, yeah, big speeches. Okay, it's all speeches at this point. Hard knocks. I look at the Cowboys. When you can dominate one side of the ball in such a way that it is just so apparent, so dominant that other teams are having no success against you, you have a chance to win every single week. The NFL has changed to an offensive-minded league. It's about points. It's about receiving yards. It's about how many 5,000-yard passers can we get in one season? 50 touchdown passes. Well, through the first 3 weeks of the 2022 NFL season, it has not been about offense. Defense has whooped offense in the first 3 weeks. I talked about this yesterday. Tom Brady, 3 weeks, 3 touchdowns, 3 offensive touchdowns. He's been crap through 3 weeks. Aaron Rodgers, pretty crap. Joe Burrow, crap. 1 win against the Jets. Way to go. It's like getting a Make-A-Wish and you get to play against the kids. It's bad offense across the NFL. Across the league, bad offense. But yes, the league has shifted to that side, but some things just never change in sports. And the motto, it's a cliche, it's used, people make fun of it. I believe in it. Defense does win championships. Defense, good defense, you play solid, and you have special talent on that side of the ball can get you places. And guess what? Number 11 for the Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons, is the man. I thought he might have a bad second year. I thought he might fall off. What was I thinking? Micah Parsons is such a factor that teams game plan for him like he's Aaron Donald now. No joke. He's getting doubled. He's getting tripled. But guess what? You got DeMarcus Lawrence on the other side. You have my guy, Dorrance Armstrong, in the middle, who can wrap people the hell up. And not to mention, Trayvon Diggs is playing like a different person. Last season, he had 7 interceptions. Great. but he was also burned more than any other corner in the NFL. Gave up the third most receiving yards when he was defending a wide receiver in the NFL last season. The third most. This season, he looks like a lockdown corner. He looks like a guy that's very much focused, that knows what he's doing, that locks in. He could have had an interception last night. He could have had a couple. But he's playing like a prototypical corner, not a ball hawk, so to speak, but a guy that can stop your opposing team's best player. Let me tell you this. Jamar Chase yesterday on Sunday for the Cincinnati Bengals only had 4 catches. It was for under 30 yards. You know why? Because Sauce Gardner was on him like shit on toilet paper. I had another way to go with that analogy, but I'm not going to. Sauce Gardner, first round pick, University of Cincinnati, was locking Jamar Chase the hell up. Cover corners can still do this. Jalen Ramsey on Sunday for the Rams had his best game of the year. Looked like the old J-Ram, was dialed in. This Cowboys pass rush is a factor. The most pressures in the history of the NFL. Daniel Jones, the only reason the game was close last night because Daniel Jones was an athletic quarterback. Eli Manning was on the Manning cast last night. He's lucky he's on the Manning cast talking to Jimmy Johnson, talking to Pat McAfee, and chatting with Tracy Morgan for a brief minute and not under center. Because if that was Eli Manning and not Daniel Jones, he would have no ribs left in his body because he would be killed. Offensively, the Cowboys are perplexing. CeeDee Lamb has all the potential in the world. And he had such a whirlwind of a game last night. He dropped an easy touchdown. It was one of the worst drops I've ever seen. He owned it. I don't care. Catch the fucking ball. That's your job. But then he comes back and makes a one-handed grab with his left hand, I might add, that was just unbelievable. But I hate that type of receiver because he's great and then he's bad. You don't know what you're going to get. But this Cowboys team can do damage this season because you have an average quarterback and you're winning games with them right now. They just beat the Giants. They got the Commies next week. They can beat the Commanders. I call them the Commies because they might as well be. Their owner's a you-know-what. So why not? They can beat them. Carson Wentz. The Washington football team gave up 9 sacks last week to the Eagles. The Eagles don't have as good a pass rush as the Cowboys. Micah Parsons is going to feast on that Carson Wentz red behind next week. I'm not saying the Cowboys are going to win a Super Bowl, but this Cowboys team can be a threat in the NFC. And a main reason why is because the NFC is just not very good. The Eagles, Bucks, underwhelming. Packers, oy vey. Go through it. There's a lot of crap. Niners, Rams haven't looked great. See our Tuesday guest is on, Shamus Fillmore. I'm sure you watched a bit of that Monday Night Football game last night. What'd you make of the game last night?
Well, at the beginning, I thought it was going to be a snore fest, kind of like we saw on Sunday. But no, it got a lot better as the game went on, and yeah, for the third and fourth quarter were both good.
Did you bet on the game last night?
No cash on the game last night. No, all my losings went on Sunday, so I decided not to re-up. I'll probably make that same mistake again next Sunday. What about you? How'd you do for the weekend?
Not bad. College, I'm still on fire. So I'm loving the college. It's been good. NFL, I did hit on one this weekend. I took a bunch of doggy parlays. Got the Detroit Lions plus 5.5. They covered against the Minnesota Vikings. Should have won the game outright, but they're Detroit. Took the Atlanta Falcons, big dub against the Seahawks.
Nice.
You gotta love that victory. And I also took who else? The Rams. I had the Rams in that parlay in Arizona, and thankfully, I did not bet on the Niners Denver game. I refused to because Denver's just so. I just can't. I can't stomach to watch a Broncos game anymore. They need to get off prime time. So
Was that the worst game of the year so far, or can you think of one in the back of your head that was worse?
Honestly, Shay, it was one of the worst games I've ever watched.
Yeah, me
In
too.
my history of watching football. That was, and I thankfully, well, not thankfully, I can't sleep right now, which is a big issue. But I stayed up for it because why not? I thought it might put me to sleep. Didn't help. But yeah, that was one of the worst football games I've had the pleasure of watching.
Very few times I nod off during a game, especially NFL, and that was one of the few games I found myself nodding off, and I said, "Well, I better just turn this off because there's nothing else to watch." If I wanted to, if it was the game for punting, that would have been the highlight of the year. But NFL, unfortunately, is not wrapped around punting. No, the game was good last night. I totally agree with you. Dallas has pieces, and I think that's why they're doing so well right now. Is just because if you look at the two teams in the same division between them, well, what's the biggest difference? To me, it's defense, and Dallas's defense is just so much better.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Giants were a good story. They were 2-0. I think they have the Falcons, so they could easily be 3-1, which is a
Mhm.
fraud 3-1. But there's a lot of teams that like
They're like that, yeah.
Denver's a fraud 2-1. You got Colts are a fraud 1-1. Quite frankly,
Yeah,
uh,
and basically.
it's an interesting first 3 weeks because there's no. I think everybody, the Bills are on this pedestal that the Bills are unbeatable and they're the '07 Patriots. They're going to go undefeated. I don't think there's a great team. I truly don't. The Chiefs aren't great. The Bills aren't great. They can't win a close game. Josh
Hmm.
Allen chokes in the big moments. He doesn't know clock management. Like I said, Chiefs, Bucks, my God, their defense. But honest, my two biggest takeaways from the first 3 weeks is there's no great team, and that defense is beating offense right now. Defenses around the league are playing pretty fantastic, and offenses are just struggling to find cohesion.
Yeah, yeah. Perfect example is this Dallas team. I mean, if they didn't have a defense, they'd be off the planet already in my mind.
Mm,
But like that just kept them going last night. Unbelievable. Who had was it? Lawrence had 3 sacks last night. Like
yeah,
what a unit. He just tearing through all lines like it's shredded cheese. It's fun to watch if you're a big fan of defense. So
you got the NFL has been around a while, and then there was the AFL before it, and they keep those stats. Daniel Jones last night was pressured more than any other quarterback in the history of pro football.
really,
Yes.
poor
If
guy. And
thankfully, I
he's
said if Eli Manning was the quarterback and he wasn't doing the Manning cast talking to Tracy Morgan, he would be dead today because he would have been sacked 18 times last night because I have more athletic ability than Eli Manning.
Yeah, good thing Danny Jones or Danny Fandom, I like to call him, is good on his feet because otherwise he would have been he would have been rolled over. And surprisingly he only threw one pick, which
I
is
know,
kind
and
of
it
a
was
good
at the
thing.
end of the game.
Yeah, yeah. No, good stuff though. I mean, like you said, I mean, was that the highlight reel game? No, but there was some interesting. The CD Lamb catch was something
Mm.
to watch. I thought that was exciting. I don't know much about this Noah Brown guy, but he seems to do really well, or at least he did well last night. I don't know if he's a possible slot two receiver for them, or what are your thoughts on him?
I think he can be, in particular when Cooper Rush is playing, just because these two guys are usually running the scout team, so running with the backup drills, and they've been together for 3 years on the scout team. So they know each other so well, and you can tell because Cooper has more of a connection with Noah Brown than he even does with CD Lamb on certain routes, and he trusts him. Not to mention, I think the Giants could have got called for a few flags last night in the
Right.
red area with Brown trying to get free, quite frankly. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for the Cowboys is penalties. They took 12 penalties last night for over 100 yards. They still won the game, but they're incredibly undisciplined.
Hmm.
And they find ways to put their team in third and long situations. And you're not going to win many ball games doing that.
Yeah. Well, Sean Payton will clean that up next year when he gets there, hopefully.
I will say I give Mike McCarthy some credit. I love the fourth down gamble in the fourth
Yeah.
quarter. Is the 4th and 4 at the 40. Great play call, just got it, and I changed it. Changed the game. They won it on that drive. So kudos to him. What is more upsetting to you, hearing that Mac Jones has a high ankle sprain, or that Big Trent Williams of the 49ers is out
Oof.
4 to 6 weeks with his own high ankle sprain.
Yeah, I'm not a. I can't. I'm not a Big Mac guy.
Right.
I'm not high on Mr. Jones, but I think Trent Williams the to San Francisco is probably a bigger deal for them. He seems to be
Yep.
a big piece, but I mean, yeah. If I looked at these teams and if I could pick one to make the playoffs and the other could eat dust, I'd probably pick San Francisco just because I want porn star Jimmy to make it in, but.
Right.
Yeah, no, it sucks for New England fans. I know.
They
Jones
got
isn't a he's not a mobile quarterback. He doesn't really need to do much anyways. He could probably just hobble out there, throw a couple of touchdowns,
he
throw his
doesn't need an
150 yards a
ankle.
game.
Yeah, just rip it off. He doesn't. He just needs a nub out there, just stand in the pocket. Old
Yeah.
Mac Jones, but yeah, they got no Mac Jones this week, and now they go to Green Bay with
Oh.
Brian Hoyer.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
number, if you want to bet on that game, I do it now because that numbers only continue to go up for the for the Packers as the week goes on. I think they'll be a double digit favorite.
yeah. I gotta throw something on there. It's gonna that sounds like just baby food to your boy Aaron.
Yeah, he needs a confidence booster game after squeaking out that win against the
Yeah, that's another
against the
game with
Bucks.
all
Yeah,
punts.
yeah, a lot of punts. Just the punters are like McAfee could be making a lot of money. Like he already is, but I mean he could be making a ton of money
Yeah.
punting. What did you what did you make of Tua being allowed to come back into the game after going into concussion protocol
Yeah,
last
kind of the biggest scandal. Well, I won't say scandal, but the biggest debate, I guess, is whether or not. I mean, he's going to come out with the prototypical answer. Oh, it was my back. I felt fine. I could play. But like, isn't it up to the NFL when something happens like that? That they have to pull him out of the game, or is it on the team?
Yeah, it's kind of a shady business because you go into that blue tent and that's your team's medical personnel. And you're
Okay.
supposed to get somebody from the league to approve it. But I mean, I think you can get a back channels away from it. You can say, "Oh, he passed the test," or we did it with him. All I know is when he got up, he looked like he was the cobwebs were in, and he was trying to wipe them away. He fell forward. He clearly wasn't all there. He comes back and plays, but I mean, I I can see why the NFLPA is not happy with this because if Tua has a problem with his head, say 10 years down the road, this is just thinking this happens. Teams, leagues are sued all the time from
Hmm.
concussion. And if it's because of this is the start of it, the NFL could have stopped this from happening while not by letting saying Tua, you're done for the day. Teddy Bridge, go in there, take the L, and the Bills are 3-0 and the Dolphins are 2-1.
Yeah. Just a lot. Must have been a lot of pride on the line, even for a game this early into the season to keep him
Mm-hmm.
out there. I guess when you're riding a hot streak like that, I understand it, but it's a guy's health and safety and his future. So if you, this is a simple question for short term purposes. Is he concussed right now? Do you think?
It's hard to say. He said he passed it. What they're saying now is he's got a back problem. He's got an ankle injury because they play on Thursday.
Okay.
What I will find incredibly interesting. So they got a quick turnaround. You just played the Bills in that 100-degree heat in Miami.
Hmm.
That is just my God. Poor bastards on the field there and in the Tampa game. That looked like complete hell. But if he doesn't play and they list that it's an ankle injury, that that doesn't sit well with me
Hmm.
because
Red
it's not
flag.
an ankle injury. It's the head injury, if you ask me, and they don't want to play him 3 days after he got a concussion against the aforementioned Bills.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was about to say. If they don't play him, even if whether or not they say it's a concussion, it's obviously going to be because of a concussion.
Right.
And yeah, it just looks really bad on the organization. So why don't they have these NFL doctors in these blue tents? That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, wouldn't that be easier? That's kind of getting rid of the middleman for these operations.
Absolutely. That's the way it should be because, the NHL now can pull you from a game with the
Mm.
concussion spotters like on the ice. To me, the simple thing is you see Tua get up like that, he's done. It's a new way of thinking. The old school would be, oh, you just brush it off. That's not a That's not a smart way to do it. To me, it's if you see a guy have that kind of reaction, it's just to think, okay, you passed a test that you easily maybe somebody helped you, or maybe you're aware, but you're still shaken up a little bit. It's just I'm not. It doesn't take. We're not doctors, but I do know common sense. It makes more sense to just say sit out tonight and live to play another day.
Hmm.
To
Yeah.
me,
Yes.
like, but somebody being down there, somebody being the first one to talk to him, and not a team doctor of the Miami Dolphins, is something that should happen. An independent arbiter, if you will. It's like in your salary arbitration, you have an independent doctor that does not care about what the Dolphins want. They don't care that the Dolphins want Tua on the field to go beat the Bills. He says the best thing for it's like a doctor on Survivor. When you have to pull somebody from the game, it's sometimes the doctor says it's not up to the contestant anymore. We have to take you from the game because this might have long-term ramifications on your health.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Miami, they're just rolling now.
They're good. They're a good
it's
team.
it's going to be interesting to see if this affects them later down the season. Cost them a playoff spot by either not being careful with their star player. But good for them. I'm not a Dolphins fan by any means, but they've been fun to watch over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, we've seen a couple questions because that was a questionable one. I also thought the Chargers just playing Herbert in
Yeah,
general and then keeping him the whole fourth quarter when they were down by 30 points to the Jags, my
Jacksonville. Yeah,
Jags. Another I took them in the parlay as well, Jags, baby.
attaboy.
Yeah. So, but I don't know, he shouldn't have played. He clearly wasn't ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
And we are down 30. Chase Daniel, your boy, he's there. He's making 3 million a handoff. Just get him out there for a couple snaps.
Yeah, if anything, he looks good out there. So I mean, it's good for the camera. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That beard, my God. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
I agree. I mean, anytime you got to stick like inject a player in the leg, especially no less a quarterback, I think it's a
mhm.
good sign. You probably don't need to win. I guess I mean, obviously there's a ton of pressure on the Chargers right now because of how poorly they played. But yeah, like putting him at risk like that's not going to help either. It's if anything, he's going to get more damage. He's going to get more banged up, and I mean, is their season over? No, probably not. I wouldn't
No,
say,
no, not at
but
all.
but you're definitely putting yourself in a more vulnerable situation by just going out there and throwing your best players to the wolves, basically. Because I'll say it, the Jags defense has been unbelievable these last 2 weeks. They've been
Hmm.
prime. Is it Trayvon Walker? Is that the guy?
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Trayvon Walker.
he's a num
He's a
num num
man.
num. That's all I'm gonna say. Num 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 num. He's eating these guys up left and right. He's a man. Yeah, exactly.
Jags are legit, and yeah, the Chargers, their coaching decisions are stupid. And that whole division, that the Denver's stupid decisions. I'll hack it and Russell Wilson and that clown show down there in Denver. You got the Raiders who haven't won a game yet. Who McDaniels has already had a closed door meeting with the owner. That means it's going extremely well for them down there. The Chiefs lose to the Colts because their field goal kicker can't find the fucking uprights. I mean, it was a hell of a day for the AFC West with what happened there. I I didn't touch on this story last week because I didn't know all the facts yet, and I knew
Mm-hmm.
you'd be on Tuesday, so I thought we'd talk about it today.
Appreciate that.
And it's about your Boston Celtics and your head coach Ime Udoka, who last week we found out was being suspended for the entire season for in sexual relationship with a female employee of the Boston Celtics. This was consensual, but we didn't know all the details. Ime Udoka is married with kids, so there's that of it all. Shay, I want your opinion on it, and also I just want to start by saying I think the reporting on this story has been really poor from the people in basketball circles. They've made it completely for 2 3 days. It was up in the air about if it was consensual, if it was not, if like what was the nature of the relationship. And I just think the NBA media failed on this story. But what's your thoughts on this story?
Yeah, I think that anytime you get this kind of dilemma where it's a relationship within the organization. It's always going to have those question marks, right? Just like a lot of organizations, because of things happening in the past. NBA players have happened in the past. Was it consensual? I think that's going to be brought up, but you're right in the sense that it's poor reporting, poor journalism in general. If you put that out there and you don't have all the facts on what's going on, and that seems to be what happened those first few days. I 100% agree. Just throwing that this was a non-consensual relationship between this female employee and Udoka. That is just disgusting for him, because obviously it's putting his name through the mud when he has done nothing wrong in that sense. Right. But he has broke team rules, which is why he's been suspended. I'm sure if this was, they're not gonna dice him for if he was cheating on his wife with someone outside the organization. Obviously, that's out of their control. That has nothing to do with them. But it's any person in power, and obviously he has the position and the role without the organization, that he's not supposed to be doing these things. That's in place for all players and management level staff. And he failed that. And basically, what they're saying is, he failed that code. He failed the team. This has been a distraction towards the team, is how I feel about it. And quite frankly, is he, did they do the right thing by giving him a year? Yes. Do I think that he will continue to be a Boston Celtic? I don't know. I kind of see him being let go at some point, just because what are Boston fans unfortunately known for most often than not?
You talking about race?
They're racist, yeah. They're not all racist, and I'm not going to put that label, but that's what they're known for right now. They don't need to battle racism, the racism card, and womanizing card.
I even thought it was a big deal that he was named head coach because of their history. I thought that was not that just for the fan base, they seem to really embrace him, which is not all that. Sometimes he can be a great coach. I mean, Bill Russell was coaching the Celtics. Sometimes it doesn't. You can be great, and they still don't accept you down there because of the color of your skin.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And that's a good point too. And now they're stepping into, Joe Musla. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
He's also African American. He'll be their second, head coach repeatedly. So that'll be an interesting storyline to follow too. How he's treated. He's obviously been with the team for years, so it's not like he's a new face coming in. But yeah, so I think for the best thing for the organization is probably even to let Udoka go, and he'll get a job somewhere else. He's a good coach. He's proven that. He battled through. He got a 500 team to the NBA Finals. That's all you can say. At the midway point through last year, they were not sitting pretty, and they battled. They had an unbelievable run in the second half of the year, and an unbelievable playoff run with some banged up players, and he's got a lot to do with that. But ultimately, I think you got to worry about your short-term image and how you're perceived as an organization that's professional in every manner.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And for him, I'm really surprised because he's a first-time head coach. I get temptations. Me and you, we grew up. You see, you're in relationships. You're hanging around different women. You might have a girlfriend, and there's always that temptation. And that's for the opposite sex too. That's just the way life works. Some people can control it better than others. But for him to be his first time a head coach, and not to mention it is harder for black coaches to get jobs, and not to mention just to get a second job, it's 20% of black head coaches get a second chance. 45% of white head coaches get a second job. That is a drastic shift. So he's risking just his image around the league. He had a great team. They seem to love him as a head coach. And I don't know how you suspend him for a year and then you welcome him back, because I don't see Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, everybody just saying, okay, welcome back, Udoka. And he can tell them to buy in and be good soldiers when he really wasn't living up to his quote unquote standards.
Yeah. And it's brought up a lot. I've seen this through multiple years, whether it was Brad Stevens or the new head coach. and it's about building trust and gaining the trust again. Well, he's basically breached that trust with a lot of people in that organization and his players by not respecting the rules. And, that's goes point for any rules. And, how is he going to be looked at by any female employee again in that organization? Probably pretty poorly and probably not well. It's different if, and I'm not saying that's good or, whether the situation will be better on his own part, but he just got to the organization. He's been there for a couple of years. He's still learning and he's still gaining the trust. If this was a Greg Popovich, which he would never do, who's been there for decades and decades, well, you get a little leeway maybe with something like this. But yeah, definitely not in such a new role. So, and let's be honest, if this new head coach steps in, does a great job, he knows the team, he's been with the organization. If he does a great job, they will have no reason to bring him back, which I think would be their best benefit, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I still think their goal is to win a championship this year. They've hit some roadblocks. Obviously, Udoka is no longer the coach. Danilo Gallinari tore his ACL. He's done for that's a tough break for the team.
Yeah.
Not to mention, Shay, they lose Udoka. They could have had Will Hardy, who was the lead assistant who went to Utah. Danny Ainge scooped him up, and maybe this coach will be a good one, but Will Hardy, clearly they thought of him enough to be a head coach of a team. So the Celtics lose their coach and also lose probably the guy they trusted the second most on that bench.
Yeah, exactly. Hardy was a really good coach, even if he's as a backup guy. I really enjoyed him just as much. He seemed to get along with the players. He's a players coach, I feel, deep down, so he understands a lot of those guys, and he probably would have been a better fit. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I also like giving him an opportunity to go too. So when he got an opportunity to go to Utah, which will be an interesting team to coach this year with the changes they've made. Yeah. I certainly think that he deserved that opportunity as well. So no hard feelings about that. But yeah, poor timing.
Percentage chance Udoka coaches in the NBA again as a head coach?
That's tough, right? He's got limited experience as a head coach, and he's just coming off this scandal. I think he enters into an assistant role next year. Okay. Not with the Boston Celtics, I think with a different organization, and then maybe years down the line he'll patch that up and he'll be a coach, because obviously he's a proven winner and he fights for his team, which I enjoy. Like anytime we came to referees or screaming matches with his own team, trying to motivate them, it seemed to work more often than not.
Yeah, I think I go as high as 70%. The reason I say that is, if you're good enough at your job, you'll get another look. Alex Cora got the Red Sox job again. AJ Hinch got the job in Detroit, leaving from Houston because they were good managers. They cheated. They did all of those things. But again, you get another opportunity if you're good enough. Mm-hmm. Again, even I look at steroid use. Alex Rodriguez gets scooped up again after testing positive because he was Alex Rodriguez, and he was a good baseball player. So, yeah, I think I don't disagree with you about the assistant coach deal of it all. Just he needs to build back his reputation. He needs to build back trust in the NBA community. But also, Shay, in saying that, maybe other organizations aren't as stringent as the Celtics are. They clearly had these rules. I'm not so certain these rules are held everywhere across the league. You're telling me the Phoenix Suns have these rules? They definitely don't. That ownership group there, you can probably go hog wild with employees in there in consensual relationships. So I think it kind of tells us something about the Celtics and what kind of standard they set, because, I mean, how many shows do we watch where workplace romances or even workplace affairs, workplace flames are protagonist, antagonist characters in these shows, and in the NBA, clearly the Celtics are not on the same page with that.
Yeah, that is true, and that does favor them a little bit, and especially with media and stuff like that. You get thrown through the mud right now, but overall, you're right. There's definitely other organizations much bigger outside of the NBA. I'm sure the NFL has some stuff going on, and they've got cobwebs, for sure. That's just how it's going to go. But good on them for actually having those flags up and doing something about it. They could have caught this and they could have said, no, we'll suspend him for half a season or we'll take him out for a few months. But I think by setting the precedent that it's a year, and by taking out someone in a head coaching level job, really tells your organization that we take this very seriously throughout. And yeah, you're right. There's a ton of shows kind of based off that. Now I'm thinking about it. Skylar White.
Are you surprised that Aaron Judge has not hit his 61st home run? It's been over a week.
Yeah, I think I was on here last week saying, because 70 is not out of the range, and now I'm kind of getting a little worried.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably in his head a little bit. Like he seems just. I'm watching a little bit of it last night, obviously with against the Jays, and I'm thinking, God, is it going to happen? And like I said, though, I don't think he's down for the records and for the personal gains. I think he really wants the teams to succeed, and yeah. But I don't know. I think he is nervous. I think it is getting to him a little bit as we kind of squeeze down to the wire. So
I certainly think he looks to be gripping the bat. He hits one deep the other night against the Red Sox, and it was so close, and you can tell he was pissed off about it. And his family's in attendance every game. I'm sure that's in the back of his mind. Yeah, I think it is in his head a little bit because he doesn't look like himself. Not to mention Albert Pujols hits 2 in one night to get to 700. So Pujols just says, "Okay, see ya. I've done my big achievement. Now, Aaron, it's your turn, buddy. Like, go ahead, Bucko. You're 12 years younger than me. Go ahead and do it."
You just think that you'd have less pressure now. Like now that that's out of the way, okay, well I can kind of get my own thing,
Right.
And it's not like you're sharing nights, or it's not like it's too close apart. But clearly maybe it was almost like a little competition, like who could, you know what I mean? Like who can get closer? Am I going to get 700 or am I going to get to 62? And now that Pujols has already won, maybe it's like, okay, I don't care as much anymore.
Pretty cool scene for Pujols. 2 homers in one night. He gets 5 RBIs in the game, and he does it at Chavez Ravine at Dodger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Played there briefly, but it's a cool stadium. It's a historic stadium for him to do that there, and now he can retire this year with 700 home runs in the bank, one of 4 players ever. And now he can just look at the postseason and say, let's go try to win a World Series to end my career, the perfect way to end it. And, he can walk away feeling completely content that he's achieved everything that he set out to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love his presser afterwards. He's got his kids there all behind him and, on his lap. And it's all about the team. You know what I mean? There's not a selfish bone in this guy's body. I don't think. I think it's always
even ask for the ball back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that there, like you'd think at any ball that you hit in your career, that would be the one that you're saying, yeah, maybe I'll take that one. And no, it's gone. That thing's got to be it's going to be worth millions and millions of dollars someday, if not today. And he does, yeah, exactly. He just doesn't have that in his body. It's just about the team, it's about the win. He had his moment where he did the bases. He came out, tipped the cap to the fans who gave him an outstanding ovation, and it's back to business basically.
Baseball is done a week Wednesday. You can believe
it.
And the NHL starts 2 weeks Wednesday. Like this is wrapping up. You got baseball playoffs. You're going to go into hockey. Like it's getting down. It's incredibly with football and basketball training. I can't believe they're in training camp already. That's going to be starting up soon. Like it's all coming together here.
Yeah, this is the time of the year. All 4. You're just you must just have like 4 or 5 TVs going at the same time, one for every league / one, like maybe like one middle option just in case you need something else. Maybe throw in a little Family Guy or something, or Community. Or no, it's good. I'm really excited. This has been a really good baseball season. I know I know that everything's going on with the hitting, and it feels a lot of time it feels like home run or bust, but still, it's got to see some great young players. I'm loving this Onel Cruz guy from Pittsburgh. I know he's this giant infielder. I think he's going to be really fun in the next few years if he can still progress and get a little bit better. He's more consistent with the bat, and there's just another ton of young players that are coming up, and yeah, it'll be interesting. And then obviously you have your boy Tatis. What happens with him? is he coming back? Is he going to change his ways? Is he going to stay off the motorbike? We don't know.
We don't know. No, we do not. With him, he'll probably won't, knowing Fernando Tatis Jr. Just keep doing stupid shit. Do you like the new format of best 2 out of 3 wild card?
I don't. I love the one and done. I think it's entertaining because it's like we're gonna put our best. We're gonna put our very best against our very best. Here's McClanahan versus Alek Manoah. There you go. That's it. That's the matchup, and it speaks volumes to that pitcher because they know all the weight is on their shoulders.
Right.
And now it feels like a little less pressure on them and more about how deep are we now? Relying on Gosman, chicken strips. Is he going to come out there and pitch well? Yeah, it is interesting to think. So both wildcard games are both 2 out of 3.
Yeah. So best 2 out of 3, and the team that's higher has all 3 home games.
Okay, that's interesting.
And it'll be all So next Friday there'll be the wildcard series. So the top 2 seeds get buys in the American League and the National League. So likely be Houston and the Yankees, and it would be the Dodgers. And it's still, the Cardinals are not out of the race for second, but it'll likely either be the Braves or the Mets, which is still, they're only a game apart, and they play this weekend, 3-game set. So that'll be some must-watch baseball because the Mets keep winning, and the Braves keep winning, and they're only a game now back of the Metropolitans.
Love this little battle going on within the division. Just like one person steps up and then the other does, and then it keeps going. And yeah, it's good to see some great pitching coming out of New York too. They seem to find that. And I know you're pretty hot on your Braves, so hopefully they'll be able to find a way to squeeze out a couple this week.
Yeah, should be a fun series this weekend. So we're gonna do our Atlantic Division season preview today, and so there's some news in this division. As always, there's injuries galore. It seems across the NHL right now, everybody's injured in training camp. Maybe they just don't want to participate, which I can't blame them. But I'm going to give you the stage. I'm going to let you pick the first team that we cover. So who'd you like to cover first?
God, we'll get it out of the way. Let's just pick Toronto.
Okay, all right. So today we're going to go over all the teams in the Atlantic Division. We'll talk about their off season. We'll talk about kind of X factors for teams having success this year. We'll talk about kind of see where we see them finishing and what their expectations are and maybe what they should be.
Yeah, just like a rough ranking maybe of the division itself, and see where we see teams landing.
We'll do that at the end, and we'll kind of say like first, second, where we see them finishing. So let's start with Toronto, a team everybody likes to talk about.
We'll make it short and sweet.
The New York Knicks of the National Hockey League. Just kidding. The Toronto Maple Leafs are back once again with a similar team to last year. They do have a few tweaks. They're coming off another first-round playoff exit. They still have Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe, GM and head coach. The big change for this team is that Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek are gone. Jack Campbell is an Edmonton Oiler. Peter Mrazek is a Chicago Blackhawk. And the Leafs have brought in Matt Murray from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they brought in Ilya Samsonov, who is a UFA formerly with the Washington Capitals. So this was a big shift, Shay. I mean, obviously Kyle Dubas saw Matt Murray. He thought he was an upgrade. He had him in Sault Ste. Marie. As a Leaf fan, I'll start with you. Just as a fan, how do you think of the move? And then just as a hockey aficionado, what do you think of the move? And are those different?
As a fan, I'm like, this could have been a lot better. I'm not super happy, especially with the last couple of years that it's been in Ottawa. You've seen the up and downs. He's in the AHL at sometimes. But as someone who appreciates the sport, it's a second chance for a guy who maybe had a rough start in a new organization. And, maybe this is a breath of fresh air for somebody who proven that he can be very effective at his role. He can be a starting goaltender, and maybe he just needs that belief system in place, and maybe he just never got that with the Ottawa Senators. So yeah, I really hope that for his sake that it's a better year. Do I expect him to come out and be a 9.30 save percentage with a two ERA? No, I don't. TRA goes against, and I all I want is for him to come out and play steady puck and be willing to, I guess, make a change for this organization. And Samsonov the same way. He's a guy who didn't get maybe he didn't get enough time in Washington, and now he's going to get another look as well.
The best thing I can put about this is both guys have a chip on their shoulder, and both guys have something to prove, and it's up to them to act on it, to show that they are better than what their previous teams thought of them. That
Mm-hmm.
Matt Murray is better than Ottawa saying, Toronto, please take him. Do it. Just take him. Take draft picks, salary, whatever you want. Just Matt Murray, it's up to him to show Ottawa. He'll play Ottawa this year many times to say that you made a mistake. That Cam Talbot's not an upgrade over me. And also for these two netminders, what I'll say is the Toronto Maple Leafs defense is stronger than the defense that Matt Murray played in front of in Ottawa, and the defense score is better than the Samsonov played in front of Washington, in my opinion. You have Morgan Riley, you have TJ Brody, Mark Giordano is a guy everybody's a big fan of. I'm not a big. He looks 39. He's bald. He looks as old as his head.
He's been bald for a while, though. He's been bald for a few years.
He's older. He's old and bald now, so that's a difference.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think if you play better defensively, which the Leafs did last year, and your forwards continue to buy in defensively, it's not so much about Matt Murray. It's about the team being just a better sum of its parts.
Yeah, I can get behind that. It's full in agreement with that. They can, if they buy into this defensive play, which they have. You see Matthews, he's turned the switch. A couple other guys. Adding David Camp last year was a big switch. He ended up being a really nice piece, especially in the playoffs. But he is known as a better defensive forward than maybe he's even given credit for. But I 100% agree with that. A lot of it's going to depend on Jake Muzzin's health, if he's going to be healthy for a full season or not, because he can be effective in and around the net. So it can help him out a lot. I think it's not out of the realm to think that Dubas will make a trade. He's on the last leg, and it finally feels like he's actually in the last leg by not giving him an extension past this season. So if it comes down to whether I'm going to keep my job or not, I think he says, you know what, I'll trade for another goaltender like he didn't do last year, and I'll get someone who's going to be able to be effective in that. If it comes down to it, I guess.
I agree with you. That I completely agree that if the Ducks are not very good and they're willing to part with John Gibson, I think Kyle Dubas has to look into it. Like you said, this is his last kick at the can. This is your last chance. I'm not sure winning a first round in the playoffs will save Kyle Dubas' job. I've heard that before. I don't necessarily buy into it. You don't play for a first round. I get it would be a huge deal to Leafs Nation because it hasn't happened since 2004, but I don't think ownership would look at it that way. I'm not so sure they just accept that the first round, then you lose to Tampa or whomever in the second round. I'm not so certain that it is necessarily the goal, but I agree with you on that. The depth of this team, they lose Andre Kasha. Ilya Mikheyev departed for the Vancouver Canucks. They bring in Nick Aube-Kubel, who was fresh off winning a Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. Calle Jarnkrok is brought over, formerly of Nashville, Calgary. What do you make of the depth in this forward group outside of Marner, Matthews, and the cast of characters at the top of this team?
Yeah, I mean, top six seems okay, but you're right. There's going to be some problems, I think, down below. There's going to be guys fighting for spots like Adam Gaudette. I've seen him. I've seen a couple of preseason matches just here and there, and there's certainly issues, I think. But I think Jarnkrok is a better ad than maybe people are getting given credit for. He seems to have a good shot. He can be maybe effective as a second power play guy if he gets out there. And he's on a pretty conservative deal too at the same time. But yeah, I think losing Mikheyev was a bigger loss than stated. I mean, he did have 20 goals last year, and he was on a pretty decent salary. Obviously, they couldn't get him back, but to try and replace a guy like that with Jarnkrok probably is not going to add up, which, ultimately leaves your bottom six still a little runny. Getting Engvall back was nice, but there's parts of his game I don't love. He's not aggressive enough for a guy who's 6'5". I think he needs to be more of a body out there. And yeah, so I don't want to see the same old. The last couple of years, it's been Wayne Simmons, Kyle Clifford down there. I like that there's new blood. Zach Aston-Reese, I hope, gets a look this year. He had a couple okay games when he played in preseason, but yeah, and like you said, Obi Kubel, I think he can be something. I think he does have something different that we haven't seen before, which is a little bit of spice in the bottom six. So I hope he's in there as well. I think he'll get a look.
Yeah, I think he'll make the roster for sure at a camp. I could see him being the fourth line center for this team. Potentially they move him up, but he can play that fourth line role. He did it.
And here's the biggest question. I know a guy you hate, Nick Robertson, the other Robertson. I don't like bringing him up, but like he's a piece if he gets on the team and he can play well. But I can't see it happening because of his health and the lack of play in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. First off, do not hate Nick Robertson. I just don't slurp him like some people do.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Over under Nick Robertson 30 games this year as a Toronto Maple Leaf.
I think he does get 30 games. I think if anything, he's going to play because I don't think their bottom six is strong enough. If anything, they might throw him in there for a couple games saying, we need to try something new. We're not getting no offense from down below, and we know you're a scorer. We'll see what you can do. And that might be a best case scenario, but I do really think so, just with the lack of depth that they have this year. I'm guessing you're not feeling that.
In the lineup, he's got to play top six. He can't play he's too weak. He's too ineffective, and that he can't play a checking line. Like he can't be on Camp's line. That would be Camp would just hate Nick Robertson. He'd do nothing for him. Just to be as effective, winning faceoffs, get the puck deep, be smart. Good shift. And I don't see him how he's going to be effective on a fourth line with you mentioned with an Aston-Reese and with a Wayne Simmons. That line just smells of a bad shift of getting hemmed in your own zone. So if he's not in the top six, where you got Matthews likely with Bunting, Marner, I don't see why you break that up. They had a great season last year. Tavares, he's going to be out a couple weeks, but he comes back. You got him with Bill Nylander. And are you replacing Kerfoot on that line for Robertson to start the year? Is that where you see him fitting in?
Maybe, yeah. Like if that was a combination. Kerfoot's not playing well either. I mean, they have no reason to keep him up in the top.
What do you make of Kerfoot? He trends on Twitter about every week because something happens where a team gets a guy for cheaper salary than the $3.5 million that Kerfoot currently makes, and for some reason, Leafs Nation just feels the need to talk about Alex Kerfoot.
They got to defend their boy. I'm on there a couple times throwing out tweets. Hey, Foot Nation. No, I like Kerfoot, but yeah, like you said, he's nothing special. I think his numbers are inflated by the company he keeps as well. So he's on the last year of his contract. I would be very, very surprised if he wore the blue and white next year as well. If anything, he could be a trade topic if we're talking about maybe moving salary around. If you needed that extra defender, if you needed more room to bring in a John Gibson's, well, he's a nice person to move because he's gonna eat up a little bit of that cap.
Yeah, and a bad team knows he's an expiring contract, so they'll take that on, knowing they got him for a month and then he's a UFA. So yeah. I think he's definitely a throw-in. Rasmus Sandin, still not at camp. Back in Sweden, he's got the same agent as Bill Nylander. We saw how that went for Bill a few years ago, where he didn't show up until December 1st. I don't get it from the Sandin camp. He has no leverage. He's proven nothing at the NHL level. What do you make of this Sandin dilemma?
My biggest thing is I hope they don't fold because of the Liljegren news. Liljegren's going to be out for a little bit of time to begin the year. So he's a third pairing guy, I'm assuming, with Giordano. And now I hope they don't say, hey, we'll give you the same thing or more just because we need you. I'd rather see them, as Dubas in particular, put his foot down and say, well, I'd rather take Mede or I'll take a chance on Jordy Ben than just hand you a position just because we think we need you. I think it's incredibly selfish. And if I was a teammate, I'd be like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Yeah, it's good to get your money, but you've got less than 80 games or You might have more than 80 games,
He's got
but just barely.
83 games.
Yeah, you just got barely a whole season under your belt, like, and you're going to be asking for much more than this. I understand it, but in some ways I feel like it's a first round effect it has on some of these players. Oh, I was a first rounder, so I deserve this much money. I was taken in the top 15. I should be getting this for my second contract.
And wouldn't you be offended if you're Timothy Liljegren that Sandin says, "Ah, you paid him 1.4?
I
I can't
know.
take that. I'm so much better than him. Like I can't take that's so appalling that I get the same deal as
I
him."
know. Fellow countrymen just spitting on your doormat saying, "Hey, I'm worth better than you." So, well, we'll see. I think that Sandin's probably. I wouldn't say he's going to be booted, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play this year. If he's going to have that attitude and act like that. And I mean, clearly there's a trade going on with this agent that he inflates his clients more than they actually are. I mean, that was awful when Nylander held out for that long and then came back and played like it looked like he never played. You know what I mean? I think he had less than 10 goals in like a 40 game span and just looked terrible. And I can't see it going any better for Mr. Sandin.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't think he has any. And for Kyle Dubas, you've never been able to win a contract dilemma ever. This is the one you would. If he doesn't play, so be it. You like you said, Mete can play for Liljegren. They're basically the same player. And you got Jordy Ben. You have guys that are at the AHL level that can fit in for now. And then if you need to make a trade, you make a move. But the Leafs are a good team. We're talking about a lot of their faults. They still have Austin Matthews, who's likely 50 goal scorer, if not 60 again this year.
Mm-hmm.
You got Mitch Marner, who's a great offensive player. Bill Nylander, one of the most criticized player in the NHL, but the guy just puts up points. Doesn't back check, but doesn't have to. Tavares.
He's a question mark. Because of the decline we've seen.
To me, he's the most important player on this team.
Yeah, I agree.
When it comes just to position players, his production is paramount for this team to have copious amounts of success.
Yeah, absolutely. Outside the playoffs, outside of the second season, he needs to be more consistent, and he needs to. You're right. He just needs to be a better positional player. That's the easiest way of putting it. He just needs to do his role.
5-on-5, have an impact every night.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter who you're playing with. If you don't get to play with Nylander for a game or two, maybe they send him down to the third line. Find a way to be productive with the people you're playing with, whether it's Engvall, whether it's Kerfoot, whether it's Nick Robertson. You just need to just be a distributor, find the back of the net once in a while, but more importantly, just be consistent defender, which he is just not last year.
No, not at all. Where do you want to go next? The Leafs should be a good team. We'll talk about the rankings when we're done every team.
Right. Do you want to move to Florida? Florida Panthers?
Let's do Florida. So, yeah, Florida, one of the most active and interesting teams of the offseason, bar none. Florida, it started with the trade of the offseason, really, where they traded Jonathan Huberdeau. You could argue the best player in franchise history. Him and Sasha Barkov are right there. Traded Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar to the Calgary Flames. They bring in Matthew Tkachuk, my boy. He now enters the Atlantic Division alongside his brother Brady in Ottawa. So before we get just as a whole, when you look at just stylistically and their plan from top to bottom, do you think Florida, after winning a President's Trophy, but the way they went out in the playoffs, they needed a fundamental shift as a franchise going into this year?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that they, it's great they did that. That's a great success. You have that on the mount. You won the President's Trophy. That good for you. But it means nothing if you can't find a little bit of playoff success. And losing the way they lost to Tampa Bay was just basically a slap in the face. It was almost a pimp slap on the way back as well. I really think that they do need to do something big. I thought for sure it would be actually on the back end with like maybe bringing in, maybe that fourth defenseman, that kind of stronger defender instead. But instead they changed up their top six, which I didn't mind at all because Huberdeau was, I don't even know how to put this. He was so bad in the playoffs that it hurt to watch him sometimes.
Yeah.
That was, I don't even know. I don't even know how to say it. It was just like a lackluster performance by him. And they need to do something big. They need to add a little bit of grit at the same time. And I think they combined both those things and said, we'll go get one of the nastiest players to play against and someone who's going to instigate, but ultimately will be an asset when it comes to the playoffs. You're sacrificing points, but you're getting other intangibles that you wouldn't.
Yes. And not to mention, Huberdeau's 31, Kachuk is 23. So it's a big shift when it comes to age for
Yes.
these two guys. And you sign Kachuk to an 8-year contract. I agree. Huberdeau was so bad in the playoffs. My God, he was hard to watch because he's such a good player. Not to mention Mackenzie Weegar was terrible too. So they picked two guys that were in the postseason that really didn't play well and said, get the hell out of here. Kachuk had 8 points in 11 playoff games for the Flames. He wasn't the issue. He wasn't the reason they lost.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes in, but it was an offseason of losses, Shay, because Sherratt, who they got at the deadline, he leaves. He goes to Detroit. Giroux goes to Ottawa. Mason Marchment goes to Dallas. Joe Thornton is at the retirement home, and Robert Hagg is departing as well. And they don't get to really replace him. Chris Tierney comes in on a low-budget deal from the Sens.
Yes.
Mark Stahl is on a one-year deal. Eric Stahl's on a PTO. They signed Colin White from the Sens, who was recently bought out. So their depth is definitely worse than it was at this point last year.
Yeah. Yes, and no. I think also because they, obviously they had to go out and acquire Giroux, so they wouldn't even had Giroux this time last year. But you're right. I think their decor is a major issue. I think that is going to be arguably their downfall, and I have them ranked a lot lower. Weegar, you're right, was bad in the second season, but ultimately was good in most of the regular season as kind of that solid two-way defender, I would say. Mm-hmm. And missing him and not replacing him seems to be a huge issue. They've made some small acquisitions, but they haven't done anything well. You're going from a drop-off from Aaron Ekblad, who arguably at times looks like a Norris winning trophy defenseman, to Gustav Forsling, who's good, but he's probably your fourth, maybe even fifth defenseman. So that's the gap between 1 and 2 on this team. So I really think that they either need to do one of two things. They need to get rid of Hornquist's contract, who he makes 5, maybe a little over 5, or they need to find out who's willing to take Keith Yandel's buyout cap, which is about 5.9, in order to go and grab one of these guys. And it doesn't have to be now. Obviously, it's a little late in the game. Do it mid-season. To make it a solid acquisition and find someone who's going to make your team better. Obviously, to me, Jacob Churchman would be a huge add for their team, and I think he would fit right in.
Yeah, he would obviously be great. That's going to take a lot of pieces to get him, but I wouldn't say no to that. Also, John Klingberg, he's on a 1-year deal with Anaheim. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be very good. So he's going to be available to somebody. Florida could be a team that scoops him up. He likes warm weather cities clearly, and Florida fits the bill. So that's another thing that they could look at. I also think Mason Marchment is a big loss for this team. I think he had a really great season last year, really productive. I look at a guy like Anton Lundell at the bottom of their lineup. I think he's going to be their third-line center. I like him a lot. He led the league in shorthanded goals last year. I think he's only got more meat on the bone, and for the bottom of that lineup for Florida, he needs to be productive. He needs to continue to improve so that they can continue to have success.
Yeah, absolutely. I love him as well. He's destined to be a second-line center at some time behind Sasha. So, no, it's good. I see this as almost like a gym guy. Who does all chest, all arms, and kind of skips the old leg day once in a while. But the most interesting thing that we haven't even touched about this team, Spencer Knight signs a contract, 3 years, $4.5 million total. After this year will be $14.5 million for goaltending. Kind of telling me that they plan on getting rid of somebody, and I don't think it's the guy they just signed.
Knight, no. Yeah, I think they would have traded Bobrovsky this offseason if he would waive his no trade, but I don't think I don't think he's willing to do that
How
yet.
yeah. How much are they regretting giving him that?
The second he signed the contract, I don't know
Yeah.
why teams give it out. They don't have to. The player's going to take $10 million if he's put it in front of him. I don't care if it's a no trade. He's not going to get $10 million elsewhere. It's such a mistake to give out these no trades because it boxes organizations in, and not everybody's like Ryan McDonough. He's gonna do it best for him, but also help the team at the same time. So that there's a difference. Bobrovsky's gonna be selfish, which that's his right. Let him sign the contract. He's not gonna go play in Columbus like Johnny Gaudreau would. He's going somewhere nice. He's going to the Big Apple to play with
Hmm.
his other Russian counterparts because that's just the way he rolls.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for people listening, another 4 years at 10 million for Bobrovsky. So
Yeah.
going to be tough and going to be tough on the cap unless that goes up significantly in the next couple of years, which we expect. But let's shift to unless you had any more topics on
Nope.
Florida. Is there anything you
Nope.
want
We
to
can
touch on?
pivot.
We'll flush to their I'd say their rival and someone who's been a staple in this league for quite a while, the Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Lightning have been in the Stanley Cup for 3 consecutive seasons. They are obviously, I would say, a cornerstone of the NHL with popularity. Their fans are somewhat annoying, but that's beyond the point of their team. New guys coming in, Nemestikov, Ian Cole, Myers. They obviously got rid of McDonough. What do you make of this new look for Tampa Bay?
Yeah, it's to me the biggest thing for this team is the Andre Palat being gone. He is such a great player. He's gone to New Jersey. It's going to be incredibly hard to replace his production and just what he meant to this team. I think the best you have, I look at Ross Colton, I look at Brandon Hagel. These two guys are guys that are going to need to play better. We'll get opportunities. Nick Paul as well. But I think Andre Palat's absence is huge, not to mention McDonough. I mean, nobody's a bigger Ryan McDonough fan than me. And, Phil Myers, he's a New Brunswick guy. He has an opportunity to revive his career. It's really been on life support in Nashville the last couple of years. He comes to Tampa Bay. I think he's going to get every opportunity to play. They lose Jan Ruda as well in the offseason to Pittsburgh. So you obviously got Chernak playing. You're going to have obviously Victor Hedman, and you'll have Sergachev. But I think every other position you could argue is up for grabs. Maybe Bogosian slides in, but you have Hayden Fleury, you have Ian Cole, Phil Myers. I think there's opportunities for anybody on this defense core to grab a role, and it's just finding a way to be productive at it.
If I'm Phil Myers this offseason, I'm going back and watching as much Jan Ruda tape as possible. Because I don't know, I can't, in the last 3 seasons, I can't think of anyone who's played with Victor Hedman more than Jan Ruda. He just seems to be
Mm-hmm.
his guy for some reason. So he's absent. I'm going to see what I can do to become, that whatever complements Victor Hedman's game, that's what I'm going to try and do moving forward.
Right.
So yeah, that takes a little bit of a pinch in the back end, but adding a guy like Ian Cole, I think does something. A lot of people probably raised an eyebrow at $3 million, which is probably an overpayment. I think it certainly is an overpayment, but at the same time, you've got experience. They don't mind bringing these veterans. They seem to do it more often than not. They get the Belmars, the Perrys, the Maroons. Um,
Bogosian.
yeah, Bogosian's a seasoned veteran, and they seem to like that with how they prep their young guys moving forward. And obviously, playoff experience doesn't exactly hurt on the resume, which a lot of those guys have. I think the biggest thing for me in start the season is Cirelli. It was announced about the shoulder injury. He had
Yeah.
surgery in July. He's probably going to be out for a little while, so it's going to be a weird transition to see. Stamkos will probably play center behind point, but then there's going to be left room on the wings. And you're right. I think a guy like Ross Colton's got to say, I got to be ready and I got to be able to play with the Stamkoses, the points, the Kucherovs, because that's where I'm going to make bread and butter, and that's where I'm going to get paid. Obviously, if I play well with them in the offseason.
Yeah, it's Sorelli being out hurts. I love the Sorelli, the Chernak, and the Sergachev long-term extensions by Tampa. I think they're all really smart. I think all three of them are really good players, and they bring value. you still have Vasilevsky. He's the best goalie in the NHL to me until proven otherwise. Shesterkin's very good, but Vasilevsky beat him head to head. So do it in the playoffs, Shesterkin, when it comes to beating Vasilevsky. But are you concerned with this team when it just comes to fatigue? I mean, 3 straight Stanley Cups. They played more hockey than anybody in the last 3 years. Are you worried about this team being just tired?
I think that this offseason was long enough. I felt like the off seasons in the past have been maybe even a little bit shorter. This one was extended a little bit. I don't know. I because of that year where they kind of got off to an okay start. I think it was the year that Kucherov was out,
Yeah.
and they still seemed to like it was like they flipped on the switch in the postseason, and then they just kind of rolled with it. So no, I guess to answer your question, no, I don't find it as bad. I think they will get off to a fairly slow start, just with the Sorelli being missing. And you're right, they will have fatigue in their legs, but obviously experience is going to pay dividends down the road. And I think they will be successful even in the second season again. What
Yeah,
about
I
you?
can't see this team falling off too much. I'm not worried about them not making the playoffs. They have too many good players, and they got John Cooper behind the bench too. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to get this team ready to play. So I like that. Let's go to Boston because
Okay,
they. I'm not sure if they're interesting, but they're something. This offseason, the Bruins they bring back a really similar team.
that's a
They
problem.
Yes, oh, that's a big issue. Their big additions are David Krejci coming over from the Czech Republic, fresh off the Olympics, which was so memorable, and they trade for Pavel Zacha from the New Jersey Devils, who is a restricted free agent, who they bring in. But you look up front, Bergeron's back, Coyle, Foligno, Hall, DeBrusque, Frederick, Thomas Noshek. Sound familiar? Yeah, it is, because that's who they had last year. I It's a new coach, I get it, but Jim Montgomery, is he a better coach than Bruce Cassidy? No. So what do you make of this Bruins team?
Yeah, I mean, you laid down the front. It's the same team, just a little older, and a couple tweaks and nicks. Jim Montgomery, I certainly don't think is going to get them. If Jim Montgomery was behind the bench last year, did they get to the second round? Probably not.
No. No. No, I don't
So,
think so.
and they're going to have health issues to start the year. With Marchand and Charlie McAvoy.
McAvoy.
Yeah, McAvoy. Can't even say his name there for a second. Um, this is the last. To me, this is the last stand. This is the last dance if they want to make a documentary about this in 30 years for Boston if they win. And this is it. They got 5 forwards signed past this year. So to me,
Mhm.
if great, you're going to go for one last shoot of it, and then after that, it's probably stripping it down and rebuilding it, which Boston fans have not even been privy to. They've just been used to making the playoffs and winning and going to
Mhm.
finals for the last 15 years. So it finally feels like the end of an era where Boston's kind of going to be turning a leaf here soon. Yeah, they'll still have Pasternak. Yeah, they'll still have Marchand and McAvoy, but ultimately, this is you know this is it. This is the end of the run. What do you make of their goalie situation?
Again, same as last season. Jeremy Swayman, Linus All. I like Swayman myself. I think he's got more meat. I thought Allmark was really disappointing in the playoffs. Swayman played pretty solid, but they have a tandem. They don't have a number one goalie. If you ask me, both guys are just okay. I don't see a number one. They don't have a Tuukka Rask. They don't have a Timmy Thomas in Boston. So you're looking at a 240-game starters in my mind that will be be okay because no McAvoy for possibly 2 months is a huge deal to me because
Yeah,
I love Carlo, but he gets injured a lot. So if there's possibly he's injured early in the year, and you got Clifton and Grizzlick, Lindholm, Forbert, that's who you're rolling out there, big minutes. I really don't love that combination. There's no great defenseman there, so I think they're banking on health with Carlo being able to play because McAvoy is one of the 5, 10 best defensemen in the NHL when he's healthy, and that's the key operative word. We know he's not going to be healthy till likely December.
yeah, so interesting. I had a hard time ranking Boston with 1 to 8 because I'm like, wow, they might do this, and the guys will be healthy this time. But they've got problems depth. Like I think keeping Nick Foligno I think is great for the room, but he's going to be in a broadcast booth soon enough.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
so.
Yep.
Yeah. Why don't we go to their mortal enemies, Montreal, who will be an interesting topic. No Carey Price, obviously. They've made some additions. Actually, they made quite a few additions. They've got Dadonov, who's a 20-goal scorer last year. Kirby Dach, top 3 pick in the past. Slavoski, obviously number 1 pick, whether there plays there or not, which we got into last week, I think, or the week before.
Yeah.
Mike Matheson from Pittsburgh and Sean Monahan if he comes back healthy, which obviously is a question mark.
Yeah.
What's your look on this team? How are you feeling?
I think the best case scenario for Montreal is you lose again. And
Right.
you are at a trade deadline where you have the ability to trade away pieces. I have 4 that come to mind.
Okay.
Brendan Gallagher, I get it. He's been there forever. He didn't get the C, which I think he's going to have a problem with because I just know Brendan Gallagher. Maybe he won't. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I just think he'll be a little bit PO'd that you gave it to some kid that maybe in his mind didn't earn it.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Dvorak, that contract made no sense. I don't like Christian Dvorak at all. I don't think he brings much to the table. I've had Cole on the podcast. He's a big Montreal have defended Christian Dvorak for what he does on the ice, which is next to nothing. But again, if you can get rid of him, send him back to Arizona, that'd be a good fit. Mike Hoffman hasn't worked in Montreal. Just hasn't been a fit. His play's declining too. His give a shit meter can be really high or really low. I think his give a shit meter since coming to Montreal has been low. And also, I like this guy, but it would be beneficial to move him. David Savard. He's a good defenseman, but he's got a big ticket. You want to free up money so that you can get better players on this roster. I think getting those 4 guys, maybe even my boy Josh Anderson potentially being moved, is an option for this team. So I think losing. Hopefully, Drouin can show up this year and have some production. Maybe you can flip him too, because that'd be great. Get that pain in the ass out of town, and yeah, I think that's just best case is have some guys have good years so that you can flip them at the trade deadline.
For Montreal this year, there's no expectation to win unless you live in Montreal, which they'll always have an expectation to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's about growing these young guys, growing your young players, getting them surrounded. You have a new captain. Let him grow as a captain. Don't force him to say, hey, we need to be successful now under your leadership. What are you going to do for us? That's just going to fluster him. That's just going to burn him out early. Let him grow. I think there's some great veteran presence on this team. I'm not defending Montreal because I don't like Montreal, but I think you're right. I think that they're going to make some incredible moves this offseason. I'm blanking on who they're not. John. No, not John. Who's their new president? Is it Gordon?
Oh, Jeff Gordon.
Jeff Gordon. I'm thinking John. Jeff Gordon's good. We've seen him do it in New York where he's bringing in these young guys. He knows how to draft. He knows how to develop players. He's going to do the same thing with Montreal, I feel. Bringing in Justin Barron, which was a really underrated deal last year for Arturi Lehkonen. I think he's going to look real good. He's going to get looks this year because their decor is just so soft and there's nothing there. Joel Edmondson, he's a good piece. He's a solid defender. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this team. I think Caulfield's under St. Louis leadership and under his coaching, I think he's going to progress more than if you would with another coach. And yeah, I mean, I agree with all the 4 guys that you said. All those guys are trade pieces, and they probably will be moved, or at least most of them will. I'd have a hard time seeing someone taking Dvorak's contract just because he's just been piss poor since he's been there. Yeah, I think they just felt pressured to have a centerman because they didn't have one for so long. So they're like, well, we'll just draft whatever. We'll just sign whatever centerman we can get our hands on. And clearly that just has not worked. But yeah, a lot to like here. And like we've said in the past, I think you agree that Slavoski he shouldn't be playing this year. There's no reason to keep him up in Montreal unless, maybe it's the end of the year, give him his 9-10 games, show the fans, and then puts asses in seats for 23-24.
Yeah, I wouldn't play him. I think he will. Obviously, he's at camp. He's playing in the preseason, so there's a probably 99% chance that he's going to play. It's not the way I'd approach it, but I I don't I play the hell out of Doc, play the hell out of Caulfield, Suzuki, try to get them better. But that's not something I would be barking up the tree with Slavovsky. Let him go play in Europe, improve, and bring him back next year when the team is at least better or it has more pieces around him.
They won 22 games last year. What do you think it's more than that or over under? What do you think?
Over. I say
Over.
over because they lost so many games to injury last year. I think they'll have better luck this year. Jake Allen being in the net will win them just a few games by himself because he just seems to do that for this team. Since coming to Montreal, he's been a different netminder.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'll win 28 to 30 games.
Okay. 28 to 30.
That's my guess with Montreal. Just
So
around there.
low expectation overall, but it's a
Yeah.
rebuilding period, and they're going to be better hopefully in a few years.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Sabres. The Sabes, head coach Don Granato. They brought in Labushkin and Eric Cormier. Other than that, their team's basically the same as when they ended in 2021. What do you got on these guys?
Yeah, this is basically my notes say find hope, which is
What a
Skinner, find some consistency. Great year last year. Back it up again. Have another good season. You're getting paid $9 million, and see the development and the improvement of Owen Power, who I think is going to be great this year. I can't wait to watch him. Peyton Krebs, who you traded for Jack Eichel. Casey Middlestad, who still hasn't really found it, but he's still young. Don't give up on him. And Dylan Cousins. By the end of this year, if those three forwards, you could look at it and say they are legitimate NHLers, the Sabres are in a better position to compete in the next coming years. You get a goaltender, you get some more high-end players, then you're not the Buffalo Sabres of old where you're just a running joke.
Yeah, I agree. Take that next step. Alex Tuck, great piece. He's on a
Yep.
great contract. And, there's a lot of debate on who's going to wear the C this
I
upcoming
give it to
season.
Tuck.
I give it to Tuck too. I've heard Acapulco is going to take it, which I don't love because he's one of the older guys in the room and he seems like a nice guy, but have a player that's relevant and that's going to be around for quite a while. Tuck's on a pretty decent deal, and I think you'll extend him too if he likes it there. Yeah, but not much to add on to what you said. Buffalo, they've just got to keep moving in the right places, keep developing young players, and their goaltending is easily probably the worst, maybe outside of Arizona. And I can't. Maybe there might be another team off the top of my head, but
maybe Chicago.
Well, they got Mrazek. He's good, isn't he? Ask Dubas. I think he thinks he's pretty good.
Yeah, he loves him. He loves Dubas. Loves himself some Peter.
But and a sneaky pick for anyone who's drafting maybe this year in pool or anything like that. Jack Quinn lit the AHL up. He's lit the OHL up. It's only a matter of time before he's up. He might be up this year. He might not, but he's a good young winger who I think will with a great scoring touch, who I think will be a presence on this team moving forward. If you talk about all that young talent, man, that's a lot. And you already have Darlene there, who's he's a good piece, and he's going to be there for a couple more seasons at least, I think. Yeah, there's so much hope in Buffalo, and they're not my favorite team, but it's interesting to see them finally be on the come up after years and years of losing.
Lots this year because they're my new team.
They are? When did you announce that?
New Jersey this year. I'm watching a lot of Sabres games, afternoon, PVR, the Sabres. Got to watch them. I'll be tracking how many Sabres games I watch. But yeah, the Sabres are my new New Jersey Devils. I'll be watching a lot of Sabres. I'm looking forward to it because I got to watch a bad team every year, and I've chosen Buffalo as my team this year.
Even that sentence, PVR Sabres, I didn't like that. That's left a bad taste in my mouth. But yeah, good for you. I'm interested to see if you break your 50. What was it, 52 or 53?
53 Devils games.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if you break that.
Year.
Yeah, too many. Let's move on to the Ottawa Senators. We'll leave one of the best teams for last because they're easily something to discuss. The Ottawa Senators have made some big moves. Giroux, DeBrincat, brought in Tyler Mott. They took on Hamnick's contract. Jake Sanderson's there. He's been in camp, and Cam Talbot. Out of those names, who are you most eager to see wear the black and red?
I'd say DeBrincat. I'm curious to see what kind of production he has away from Patrick Kane. He's a 40 goal scorer with Patrick Kane. Can he be a 30 goal scorer without him? That's my question.
Yeah.
I'm not certain he's going to be. He's a good player. I don't mind the trade at all. They traded nothing for him, so of course it's pennies on the dollar. Chicago's just giving players away. But I'm not certain he's going to be that productive in Ottawa. I think he'll be a 30 goal scorer. I'm not sure he's a 40 guy, but I want to see what he looks like with new line mates. I would put him on a line with Claude Giroux. That's just for me with DeBrincat. I think Giroux is a great passer. DeBrincat is a great finisher. Timmy Stützle, I'd put Norris on. That would be a line for me. Giroux with DeBrincat and Josh Norris. I put Stützle on a different line with Batherson, and because Stützle's more of a scorer, I like the way Batherson can distribute as well. So I'm intrigued by this team because they have a whole lot of young, vibrant talent that I think should be able to score a lot of goals this year.
Yeah, they had a really pretty goal. I forget who it was. It was I think it was Shabbat, Batherson, and Norris. I think had a beautiful touch pass play in one of the Toronto games last week. Yeah, they seem like they're gonna be a lot of fun, and I agree with you. I think DeBrincat's the most interesting piece here because of the production he's had. But for him, he's playing in a market that's finally taking a step in the right direction, where it feels like the last few years, Chicago's just kind of kept stepping back and back. And I think it's going to be so interesting because he's got such a great shot and a great sense around the net.
Yep.
Yeah, there's just so much to like, and I like of this team a lot. But obviously, their back end is, it's an exclamation mark because it's just got so many concern. You got outside of Shabbat, it really drops down, and obviously they've got young guys who are progressing. Jake Sanderson, who I mentioned previously, Lassie Thompson, who's in camp, and then also Brandstrom, who's a young guy. But are they going to take major?
Bernard Docker.
Bernard Docker as well. Yeah, he's a guy I forgot. He played in the AHL last year. Did they take steps forward? Out of those guys, who do you think is going to be a full timer on this roster?
Yeah, so they acquired Hamnick. Makes no sense. That still makes no. It's one of the worst trades. I've seen
agree.
Travis Hamnick. I like players that make teams better. He makes teams worse. So I wouldn't play him. They will because it's just an ego thing. But Shabbat is obviously a lock. Artem Zub is a lock for me.
Zaitsev,
yeah, my God.
Just because he makes so much money, you got to play him.
Yeah, that's the thing with Hamnick. So you're probably going to play those four. So those four are probably locks, honestly. I would play Lassie Thompson and probably Jake Sanderson to start the year. I'd probably have those two in. I'd have Bernard Docker I'd put him in the AHL to get some reps. Then you have Nick Holden as your 7th D. He can be a healthy scratch. That's fine. He's a veteran guy. He knows what it's like to sit out games.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably where I go. I wouldn't have Holden, Zaitsev, and Hamnick playing. They're basically the same player, and they're all
slow.
Yeah, slow, not great puck movers, no offensive ability, no creativity. So I would play these young guys because you have a better chance of being successful with the younger players. Yes, they'll make mistakes, but these other defensemen, they're not going to take any risks, and you're not going to be as successful either. It'll be Shabbat taking risks and everybody else just holding back.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be good. There's obviously development to be had. Some contracts signed this year with Norris getting the extension. See how he does. And overall, I think Ottawa's in the right direction. They finally seem like they're taking steps forward to become at least a playoff team, which is something you can hope for. And hopefully they'll get a new arena in the next couple of years because location,
nice, I'll tell you.
Location's certainly killing their vibe and how many people actually enter the arena.
It's the worst way to get to a game. Makes no sense. You have to get off a freeway, then get on another freeway just to get to the rink. It's a bitch to get out there. It's Stupid the way they got that rank anyway. But and we'll finish with Detroit. Red Wings are interesting. They brought in my guy Andrew Kopp, who your Leafs could have used. They bring in Ben Sherratt. Billy Husso comes over from St. Louis. Still have a lot of great young talent. Mo Sider, another one of my boys, who won the Calder last year. Philip Zadina, they re-signed, and I've heard Eisenman say we believe in this guy. We think he's going to be a good NHLer. That's an X factor this year. The Red Wings really tried to improve. I give them credit for going out and being aggressive this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. The easily when it comes to, I guess, not money spent, but and how many places they tried to improve their lineup, you could say that they've checked off every box. Forwards, they brought in guys, defense, goaltending, they've really made improvements in all those areas to finally start stepping away. What I love, and I don't know if this is intentional by Stevie Y or not, he seems to sometimes play mind games, but all these guys are 90% of their team is on. They're done after this season. So they're going to play this year and they're going to not have deals afterwards. And it's okay. Well, if you want to stick around, well, you better play your ass off this year. And that's how I kind of see it. Larkin last year of his deal, Bertuzzi the last year of his deal, Sundqvist, Goalie Ned, all guys that just have to play well because they're going to need they're going to be busy in their off seasons if they don't get extensions early on this year.
It's smart because you have a team that's likely not going to make the playoffs. You have young talent, and if you see a window and you want to spring on it, you don't got to behold to these contracts. I think they want to re-sign Dylan Larkin, but I think they want to do it for the right number too.
Yeah.
They don't want to overpay him for being star player.
Said that dull.
I think he's a star. I think he's a fringe star player. I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think he can be the best player on a championship team.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not even the second best player, quite frankly. So I have my doubts about him, but I like the Red Wings. So let's go through it. Let's start with I'm going to go through my sheet and you tell me where you have them. Red Wings,
okay.
Playoff team, yay or nay?
Nay.
Sabres, as I say it, knowing the answer.
Big nay.
Montreal.
I have Montreal last in the division.
Last. Interesting. My Sabres are ahead of Montreal. I like it.
Yeah.
Ottawa Senators.
I have the Ottawa Senators fourth. So, yes.
So there'll be a wildcard team?
There'll be a sneaky wildcard team, unless there's two better Metro teams, which may happen. We'll get to that in the next couple weeks.
Okay. Florida.
I have Florida second.
Bruins.
I have Bruins fifth outside the playoffs, looking in.
Yeah. Tampa Bay.
I have Tampa first.
So you have your Leafs third.
I have my Leafs third. I have my doubts with the goaltending and the depth on the team. And I just think I just look at the other two teams above them and I say, you know what? Both have better goaltending.
Yeah, true.
Both are deeper. And in Florida's defense, the core is not as good, but I think Bobrovsky tonight will steal games that otherwise they would lose.
Yeah, it's tough. I think the Leafs are going to be able to score with anybody in the league when it comes to just scoring goals. I think their defense score is obviously not as good as Tampa Bay's. Because Tampa has multiple guys that I would take over any Leafs defenseman, including Morgan Riley. But I would go. I think I'd go Tampa 1, but it's real close with Toronto for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would have Tampa 1, Toronto 2. I'm still going to go Florida 3 because I think I have too much respect for that team. I have them making the playoffs. And I'm not so certain I'd have any of these teams in the Atlantic making the wild card.
Okay, so you're just gonna go blank.
Yeah, the Bruins, it's so hard to bet against them because they always seem to find a way to make the postseason. They're like the Capitals. They're like the Penguins of the past 15 years. These three teams just find a way to make the postseason every year. It's bound to end, And I think it's so important for Boston to get off to a good start because they're missing all these players they need to find some at least be competitive early. But there's a lot of good Metro teams that I think can be competitive.
Right, right. So who finishes higher for you, Ottawa or Boston? You don't have to do a full diagnose
Boston.
on it. Boston?
Boston.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be interested to see. It's. I'm definitely in the minority when I say that I think the Senators will be better, but I'm putting my ass on the
I do
line.
think they'll be better. I think they'll play meaningful games in March, which they haven't done in 5 years.
That's all they're hoping for. That's all our friend Dawson is hoping for. So
Yes.
you have Buffalo, and then you said you have Buffalo finishing lower than Montreal as well.
Yeah, I think so. Craig
Okay.
Anderson, Eric Comrie. I trust Jake. If Jake Allen's healthy, I think he'll win a few more games than 41-year-old Craig Anderson will. So, but
That's
yeah,
no.
I think I'll go with Montreal slightly ahead of the Sabres.
Okay. Okay. I see in my mind I have them getting rid of bodies, and then
Right.
if Buffalo can play like they just played at the end of the last season, where it's like, you
Mhm.
know what, we got nothing to lose, we're just gonna go out there. Good things can happen, but like I said, to keep that up for a full year with a team this bad and this ownership being this bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's tough.
we'll see. We'll see. That's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, what division are we gonna do next week? Preview that a
Let's
little bit.
do the Pacific Division next
Okay.
week.
Okay.
We'll do the Pacific Division next week with the all the Canadian teams in the Western Conference. We'll talk about the California teams, some interesting teams out there as well. Tuesday now already. What's on the docket for you the rest of the week?
I'm gonna try and sneak in. I got some stuff to do around the house. Some golf still left to be played, even in cold. I played really well last weekend, which I was happy about. So I got to keep that hot streak going. But I guess in a lighter news, I am going on a walk for breast cancer. As you know, my mother went through it this past year, so every year she puts in a team for the Moncton Walk. So anyone listening who feels like they want to make a donation of any sorts, please reach out to me, and we can make that happen for sure. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing on Sunday morning from I think like 9 until 1 maybe.
That's in Moncton, you said?
That's in Moncton. Yeah, it's walk for the cure. I think it's. I'm pretty sure it's called.
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
that's a good thing to do
definitely.
on that.
Definitely the better than mostly what I do on Sundays, which is beach it, watch about 6 to 8 hours of football, fall asleep, eat like garbage. So yeah, it'll be a big change. Hopefully, I'll be able to sneak in some games. I wasn't able to watch many this week with I was out in the course, but this one is good. Final note too, we're gonna show. It looks like you're showing it off right now. It's the new ink cat here. Is that it on the
Right
wrist?
there. That's it right there on the
Give
wrist.
it a little close up here for everyone watching on YouTube.
All right, yeah, it's a microphone right there. Yeah, I can flip her a little bit here. So yeah,
I
little
see it pretty
microphone.
good.
I got that yesterday. So
Looks good.
another one added to the. And I also got my credo, my nickname. I got Jug tattooed up here.
Is that which two is that in between? I'm having a hard time. It looks like the
Yeah,
spine one and
see, I'll move them right there.
look at you dirty dog. Not too much space on that arm. Are we going to
No,
be
no, I'm
moving to
running out. It's pretty much almost full. So to move on to another body part next time.
the face?
Yeah, I'm thinking teardrops. Um,
Hopefully not, but you never know. You never
you never
know.
know. It depends of how inspired I am on a given day. If I want to go with the face tat,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe like Timon right here and Pumbaa right here, just right underneath the eyes.
Yeah, yeah. Simba somewhere in there, maybe
Yeah,
underneath the nose.
Simba below the equator.
What? Yeah. What about you? What you got going on this week? Finish it off.
This week I'm gonna try to sleep. I've been I've slept about 6 hours in the last 4 days. Um, yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle. It's running on fumes over here. I can't sleep. It's a problem. I don't sleep a whole lot to begin with, but right now I just can't. I don't know why. So gonna try to sleep tonight. That's my main goal. Try to get at least 2-3 hours. um,
Maybe a few
yeah.
more.
So that's tonight, and then the weekend, college football, NFL. The works.
You might just have to go to like a gym or a bar and just start spewing off some garbage to somebody, and then they'll just
Knock
they
me
might
the
put you
fuck
to
out.
sleep. They might put you to sleep, which
Yeah,
would
that's not a bad idea. I could use a beating too. I'm due for one. So um,
you've taken enough beatings on your NFL bets that I don't know if you'll need to take another one.
I don't know. I don't know. The college bets, they keep me honest though. So I can lose the
Evens
NFL,
out.
and still the college makes me feel confident. So I
Yeah.
don't
Well.
I don't
Yeah.
worry too much.
Well.
But
Best of luck.
what's that?
Best of luck in your sleeps. I know what it's like to stay up for me. If I don't get my 7 hours, it's tough. Tough. I'm pretty grumpy guy in the morning, so luckily it doesn't take much. But
7 hours. I'd like to get 7 hours like a week at this point. Yeah, since Friday I've slept like 6 combined hours.
yeah, maybe it's just colder out, and you buzz in the cold for some reason. You're not much of a warm guy. You're much more made for the colder weather.
I do love the warm weather though. Miami dream's not dead yet, my friend. Not dead yet. The Miami dream, one day it might happen. But awesome pod today. Good work, and enjoy the walk this weekend
Thank you.
with your mom, and it's great cause. So good on you, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Talk to you next Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Take care. There's Shamus, everybody. Great chat about the Atlantic Division. Really went into depth on all the teams. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll do the Pacific Division next week. I will do the Metropolitan Division on Thursday here on To The Point. Tomorrow, Wednesday, winners and losers of the NFL Week 3. We'll touch on those teams. We'll touch on some college football action, get into some baseball news tonight, NHL preseason news and notes, all of that forthcoming tomorrow. And we'll talk about it in less than 24 hours here on To The Point.